Holy cow. Good afternoon to you. It is 3:06 now in a breaking news environment here on WMAL. Good to have you with us. Henry Rodgers is going to join us at 3:30 today. A lot to talk about with him. He's got on-the-record statements from a bunch of Republican senators who are done with Mitch McConnell, and he was just with President Trump in the last few hours. We're going to talk to him about all of this. Burt Jones joins us at 4 o'clock, the lieutenant governor of the state of Georgia. That's where there's a left-wing effort underway to meddle in the election by way of the courts. He's got some thoughts on Fani Willis. And Mike Davis joins us today from the Article 3 Project. He'll talk about today's Supreme Court hearing. Big oral arguments today. It's not going the left's way. The ballot rigging scheme may finally be dead, at least this one. And you can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. My plan as of 10 minutes ago was to start with the ballot rigging oral arguments today in the United States Supreme Court. Remember, Colorado Democrats, national Democrats using Colorado for this, trying to banish Donald Trump from the ballot, saying he's an insurrectionist. No court has ever rendered a judgment like that. In fact, no charges have ever been put forward that suggested that. But Colorado decided, in all of their marijuana-fueled wisdom, to declare that Donald Trump is an insurrectionist and therefore ineligible to be president of the United States. Again, big oral arguments today before the Supreme Court. I've got audio coming up for you on that, of course, and Mike Davis as well. And Trump's reaction. Henry Rodgers will tell us about that. He was with him earlier today. But before I get there, the breaking news now is that Robert Hur, the special counsel assigned with looking into Joe Biden's years-long theft of classified documents, has rendered a report today and has concluded, as expected, that there will be no charges against Joe Biden for the theft and dissemination of classified materials. Yeah, that's the added interest today. It's not only the theft of those materials, which you and I knew about, but it's also the willful dissemination of them. And yet, even with all of that evidence, they say no charges. Now, listen to why they're not charging him. I can't even believe this is a real... I guess I can, given the way our system works, but it's just amazing that this is the explanation. The reason they are not charging him, they say, is because he is too old and his memory is too shot for them to be able to find him guilty in a court of law. They will not be able to convince a jury of his crimes because he is too senile. I am not exaggerating in any way what they said here. Let me read from the NBC report. Special counsel says there is evidence Biden willfully retained and disclosed classified materials, but will not be charged. NBC headline, just out. Special counsel Robert Hur has declined to prosecute President Joe Biden for his handling of classified documents, but said Biden's practices present serious risks to national security, and added that Biden portrayed himself as a, quote, elderly man with a poor memory, end quote, who would be sympathetic to a jury. Quote, our investigation uncovered evidence that President Biden, that is, willfully retained and disclosed classified materials after his vice presidency when he was a private citizen, the report said. But the evidence, quote, does not establish Mr. Biden's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Really? We continue. About a month after he left office as vice president, in a recorded conversation with his ghostwriter in February of 2017, Biden remarked, again, in a recorded conversation, that he, quote, just found all this classified stuff downstairs. This is Biden's voice saying, I just found all of this classified stuff downstairs, the report says. Biden was believed to have been referencing classified documents about the Afghanistan troop surge in 2009, which Biden opposed. Biden's memory, Hur's report said, was, quote, significantly limited during his 2023 interviews with the special counsel. You'll remember that was when Biden was supposed to be attentive to all these national security concerns. The White House said, oh, he's taking care of all these issues. He wasn't. They lied to us. He was in the midst of bumbling around and not remembering things involving his theft of classified documents with Robert Hur. Now come the money quotes. Here's where they say he's senile. Quote, we have also considered that at trial, Mr. Biden would likely present himself to a jury, as he did during our interview of him, as a sympathetic, well-meaning, elderly man with a poor memory, the report says. based on our direct interactions with and observations of him, he is someone for whom many jurors will want to identify reasonable doubt. It would be difficult to convince a jury that they should convict him, by then a former president, well into his 80s. This is interesting, by the way, that they say that if they were going to drop these charges on him, presumably, I guess it's after his presidency is what they're suggesting here. I'm not staring at the full report. I'm reading NBC's summary of this, but these are actual quotes from the NBC reporting. It would be difficult to convince a jury that they should convict him, by then a former president, well into his 80s, of a serious felony that requires a mental state of willfulness. So Biden's senility saves the day. Biden's inability to think has rescued him from criminal charges, conveniently. He's too shot. He's too far gone. We can't charge him. Hers report, NBC continues, Hers report says that there were clear material distinctions between a potential case against Biden and the pending case against Trump, noting that unlike the evidence involving Mr. Biden, the allegations set forth in the indictment of Mr. Trump, if proven, would present serious aggravating facts. I guess one thing you could take away from this is a backhanded compliment to Trump. He's of sound mind, that the government's position is that Trump is with it. The federal government's official position is Trump's brain works. Therefore, we're pursuing him in court. Biden's brain does not work, is what they're saying. Also, of course, the comparisons here are apples to oranges. Joe Biden was vice president of the United States, and prior to that, a United States senator, with no right to steal classified information from the U.S. government. Donald Trump has a deeply credible case to make that he was president of the United States, was fully capable at will to declassify relevant information, anything he wanted to. He could declassify on a whim. If you walked past him on the street, not that you typically walk past a president, and he turned to you and he said, hey, just want you to know we're bombing Iran within the hour, it is totally within his right, in a unique way that no other government official can satisfy, to say something like that. And so Donald Trump taking documents that were previously classified with him to Mar-a-Lago while he's still president of the United States, knowing that he's not going to be president of the United States in just days, all has a deeply implicit projection of declassification involved with it. And by the way, he's also said, and people have also made arguments on his behalf from his world, that he declassified those documents. So we're dealing with two completely different scenarios. One, a president who is entitled to declassify as he sees fit, in the way he sees fit. And then we're dealing with a vice president and a former senator who stole classified documents, who admitted to his ghostwriter he stole them, who admitted that he found them, and then disseminated them to the ghostwriter in the interest of helping that person write the book for him under his name, and then to deceive the American people that he actually wrote a book, which is a common practice, of course, in Washington. Because it's nothing if not a long chain of deception. Oh, you wrote that book, Senator? Yes. And they're lying to you. They didn't write the book. Their name's on it. Somebody else wrote it. And in this case, it was somebody else who had access to classified information that was given to them after being stolen by Joe Biden. And the government's saying, look, we just don't have enough to go on here. It's not clear he broke the law. And even if he did, the jury's going to like him. They're going to see this guy and they'll be like, oh, the poor old man, he can barely think. I can't find him guilty. Oh, look at him. He's so cute. That's literally the defense that they're raising right now for him. So they're not acting as prosecutors. They're acting as spin artists on behalf of Joe Biden. It's wild. Meanwhile, Trump has a non-disclosure agreement with Stormy Daniels. He gets treated like he's meddling in the entire election. It's like crazy. This comes on the same day where you have oral arguments in the Supreme Court about the left rigging ballots nationwide to prevent Trump from appearing on them, to guarantee that Joe Biden wins because they have contempt for the American people and their decisions. This is all happening. Do you need any more evidence that this is an entirely corrupt enterprise? Do you need any more? The report, which, let me just emphasize another detail here. The fact that Robert Hur goes out of his way to bring Trump into a report on Joe Biden's behavior kind of tells you everything, doesn't it? It's a recognition, definitely by Hur, H-U-R. It's a recognition by him that the public is going to look at this and go, what? You charged Trump? You raid Mar-a-Lago? You rifled through Melania's underwear drawer? And then Biden can keep classified documents in a tattered box next to his Corvette. It's documents that he knowingly stole. You have recordings of him saying that. And you can't charge him. By the way, the photos are in the report today, and they're now starting to be disseminated. And in the photos, like I said, it's a tattered cardboard box packed with classified documents in his garage in Delaware. And guess what they didn't do this time? They didn't spread the documents out. There are no cover photos. There's no classified markings visible inside of photos. You're just staring at a box with blue and white folders in it. There's no text on it, nothing. You don't get anything like that. With Donald Trump, they literally ripped every document they could out of its well-organized situation. They spread it all over the floor. They take pictures of classified covers in order to indicate, see, it's classified. Look how he kept it. They imply in the photos that he was a total slob with classified information. It was theatrical the way they presented it in their filings. In today's report for Biden, they don't even show you what the documents look like. They're just in a tattered box, sitting in the vicinity of an unused treadmill inside of his garage. Which, in case you're looking for ways Biden's just like you, he also has a treadmill he doesn't use with any frequency. But it's crazy. It's crazy. So let's see. They also say, oh, Biden was so cooperative. Yeah, he's brain dead and cooperative. That's their explanation for why they're not charging him but charging Trump. The announcement tops off a lengthy saga that began in November of 2022 after one of Biden's personal attorneys found classified documents. Wow, look what we found. That appeared to be from the Obama administration at the Penn Biden Center for Diplomacy and Global Engagement. Yeah, this all happened at the same time. So you might remember what this was. Everybody was going after Trump for the classified document scandal. And then every one of these former presidents and VPs suddenly realized they had classified documents too. So Mike Pence, remember? Pence has to cough. Oh, yeah, sorry about that. He hands over his documents. Biden, they're like, oh, we found some. They hand them over because they're trying to make this big show of, oh, look how cooperative we are. But, of course, people notice and they're like, wait a second. Biden wasn't president. He stole these documents. So they appoint a special counsel to clean things up, and this is the cleanup act. This is it today. It's coming out right now. No charges. He's too senile. We can't do it. The jury might even like how senile he is. They really say that. That's unbelievable. But I guess, again, it's totally believable. Let me take Dave in Fredericksburg, line 2. Dave, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you, Dave. Go for it, sir.
This two-tiered system of justice is really incredible.
Isn't it amazing?
I mean, first of all, it's not up to the investigator to determine whether or not he's guilty or not. They've investigated. Now it needs to go to court of law. Don't we have people going to courts of law to be adjudicated for rape and murder? Heck, we even sent back Nazi guards that were into their 90s to at least undergo some semblance of jurisprudence and to determine whether or not they were, in fact, guilty of something.
Yeah, so you know what this reminds me of, Dave? This reminds me of the stunt that James Comey pulled with Hillary Clinton. Remember his language? He changed the idea that she was grossly negligent with classified secrets and instead referred to her as extremely careless. He changed the language of the way he presented it to the public to go easy on Hillary and say, we're not advancing charges here. They didn't think a jury would find her guilty of anything. It's funny how they always do this with these Democrats.
Well, you know, a jury can always say, yeah, you're guilty, but we're not going to send you to jail because you're a doddering old man.
Yeah, they would come up in sentencing, I imagine.
And we need to at least have clarification by the judicial system that, in fact, he is either innocent or guilty.
Yeah,
if and the other one is, let's remind ourselves, we found this shit in the garage, right?
Yeah, Dave, you can't curse on the air. We had to dump that. But I totally...
We found this stuff in the garage.
Yeah.
But everything that was found at Mar-a-Lago was in a certified holding facility, i.e. safe.
Yes, exactly. At the request of the government. The Fed said, hey, would you lock this up? So they did. I think they put multiple locks on the room where the information was. And yet they still turned it into a spectacle. Dave, thank you. It's a lot of smart points. Excellent. And Yeah, remember, they went easy on Hillary, too. It's the same deal over and over and over again. If you are an institutionalist with the United States Department of Justice, if your idea is like, hey, we need to protect this institution, its integrity, and the public's faith in it, what do you think this does today? Does that help achieve that end? Come on, be honest with yourself. Of course not. It only further drives distrust. We can't charge him. He's senile and he's old. So therefore, he's above the law now? Today, the White House was defending Joe Biden, citing conversations with long-dead world leaders in his public remarks over the last few days. And now Special Counsel Robert Hur says that Joe Biden, I swear to you, just out, the president of the United States, is too old and his memory is too shot for him to be found guilty by a jury of having stolen and disseminated classified documents. Bob is in Dale City, line 9. Bob, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hey, thanks for taking my call.
Yes,
my
sir.
Point is I smell two rats in the room. The first one is they're setting him up for the 25th Amendment, okay? And the second is the get out of jail card. Oh, he's too senile to be put in front of a jury in a court that feels bad for him. Oh, well, then you can't send him up for a jury if he's stolen, getting all that money, illegitimate gain. It's just ridiculous.
Right. Yeah. So that defense, as you astutely point out, could be used for literally anything, including the much deeper crimes of enriching his family at the expense of the American people from places like China, in Ukraine. That's the same defense can be raised. Oh, he's too likable. He's too old. He's too senile. It won't work.
Well, and the other thing is, how do we know his cognition is really debilitated when we've got a doctor saying it isn't, and now he's come out in the last few days and making incredibly...
It's hard to hear you. I'm sorry, Bob. It's really hard to hear what you're saying, but if let me summarize what I think you said and what I wish you said, which is, how can we have a president who's this mentally ill? Yeah, it's a good question, but we do. Coming up, just moments from now, we'll be joined by Henry Rodgers. Speaking of our octogenarian leadership, a bunch of senators now calling for Mitch McConnell to step down. Henry Rodgers has the update on that. He was also with Donald Trump today. Boy, we have a lot of news for you. Hey, good afternoon to you. 3:35 here, News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up on the program, the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Georgia, Burt Jones, is joining us. We talk Fannie Willis, her corruption, and what happens next there. The state Senate is now investigating her. Mike Davis joins us at 5 o'clock from the Article 3 Project. Boy, do we have a lot more to talk about with him now. We've got the big hearing today in the United States Supreme Court as the left attempts to rig ballots to make it so that Joe Biden doesn't have competition come the time of the election. And also the breaking news this afternoon, Robert Hur, the special counsel, has concluded that Joe Biden did steal and disseminate classified documents from his time as both a senator and a vice president. But he won't be charged because he's too old and his memory is too poor. You can join us, 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. One other piece of breaking news from this Robert Hur report, I'm just reading now from a portion of it. In the interview that the special counsel conducted with the president of the United States, Joe Biden did not remember when he was vice president. Here's the quote. This is from the report now. In his interview with our office, Mr. Biden's memory was worse. He did not remember when he was vice president, forgetting on the first day of the interview when his term ended. Quote, if it was 2013, when did I stop being vice president? And forgetting on the second day of the interview when his term began. In 2009, am I still vice president? He did not remember, even within several years when his son, Beau, died. And his memory appeared hazy when describing the Afghanistan debate that was once so important to him. Among other things, he mistakenly said he, quote, had a real difference of opinion with General Carl Eikenberry, when in fact Eikenberry was an ally whom Mr. Biden cited approvingly in his Thanksgiving memo to President Obama. So here you have, this is Robert Hur just absolutely eviscerating Biden's mental state, saying the guy has no idea what's going on. He has no idea when he was vice president. He has no idea what year Beau Biden died. He has no idea who was on what side of these debates around Afghanistan. He doesn't remember when he started as vice president or when he ended it. He doesn't know, he says. So we can't charge this guy, is the conclusion of the report today, because a jury's going to say, well, he's kind of likable. He's old and he doesn't remember anything. So we can't find him guilty. That's the conclusion of Robert Hur today. The senility defense. Holy cow. So those are the updates. In the meantime, we do have an octogenarian who's running the Republican Party in the Senate. It's Mitch McConnell. And McConnell, of course, tasked James Lankford with coming up with one of the single worst pieces of legislation most of us have seen in our lifetimes. It was designed to codify the chaos on our border and to give foreign countries tens of billions of dollars of money that we don't even have. It's been a huge disaster, and now a bunch of Republican senators are speaking out in a way against McConnell that we've almost never seen. In fact, this feels pretty unprecedented. Henry Rodgers joins us now, chief national correspondent for the Daily Caller, and he's on the phone. Henry, good to have you with us, sir.
Hey, Vince, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Okay, so let's talk Mitch McConnell. You know, what is it your view that McConnell's days are numbered? What are you hearing from the Senate?
Yeah, well, I just put a piece out last night for the Daily Caller where I interviewed 5 GOP senators who have some influence, I will say, and they are not pleased. Let's put it that way. They are not happy with McConnell's crafting of this border deal. They are not happy how he assigned Lankford to kind of, be the fall man for him, build this deal, and then behind closed doors tell everyone to block it after all the pushback they were getting from the Trump base and from Americans around the country. So, I thought it was very interesting to hear, like you said, leading into this, these senators are always usually scared to attack McConnell. And Ted Cruz had the guts to say, he should step down from leadership. This has been a disaster. He's not working for the American people. He's looking out for his best interests. And ultimately, they believe this border deal was just meant for Ukraine funding, something that McConnell has been obsessed with and trying to get Republicans on board with.
So it sounds like the game plan was to try and mollify the base while not actually doing anything about the chaos at our border, and then just really the priority is to give money to Ukraine.
I would say that's right. And talking to these senators, and I talked to one on background who told me, I said, do you think, is this all talk, or are you guys actually going to do something about McConnell? Because people are scared to attack McConnell for, fundraising reasons.
Yes.
The fact that he's been a leader for such a long time. But it sounds like there's an effort, a senator told me on background, there's an effort behind the scenes currently to find a new replacement and to push out McConnell, which is something like I've never seen before covering Congress. And I think it takes a lot of guts for these guys to do it. Again, McConnell might have dementia, to be honest with you. He's not doing well health-wise.
No, I mean we've witnessed this. We've witnessed this on camera a bunch of times. I mean, he stops, he can't speak. He'll be frozen in place for a time, and then we'll get some sort of explanation from his office. Don't worry, everything's fine.
Right, and when I started seeing those videos emerge originally, I thought, okay, this might be the end of McConnell, but they don't care that he can't finish his sentences, which is quite interesting. They're really mad about this border deal that he crafted with Democrats and with the White House and with Chuck Schumer, and they're sick of it. And I advise everyone to read the story at thedailycaller.com because you'll see some very heated quotes, I would say, pointed at McConnell and leadership, and overall frustration amongst Senate Republicans.
Senator Ted Cruz told Henry Rodgers here of the Daily Caller, quote, Mitch McConnell, in effect, gave the largest in-kind campaign contribution to the Democrat Senate Campaign Committee in history, he said. Another Republican senator, unnamed in this report, spoke with anonymity to the Daily Caller, said, quote, I think this is our opportunity to take him out. We're sort of working to figure out if that's possible. I think there's a bit of a chicken and an egg problem where I think you probably have the votes, but you need somebody to step forward. And that person that's unwilling to step forward unless you have the votes, it can't just be a Mike, that would be Lee, or Ted Cruz, and a sort of everybody who hates Mitch thing. You obviously have to get kind of the middle of the conference. So that's all being worked on behind the scenes. And I think, frankly, how this vote works out will help determine whether the conference, broadly speaking, is willing to go in that direction. How many senators, Henry Rodgers, are willing right now to speak out against Mitch McConnell and his leadership and say it's time to go? How many? There are not a tremendous number.
There aren't many on the record. We got about 5 who basically said it yesterday. But however, I've heard from a couple other senators that they believe there's over 10 again. But if these people won't speak up, I don't understand how they expect to get rid of McConnell.
Yes, somebody has to go first.
There's still senators who are crawling around, too scared to speak up and too scared to go against McConnell. Whereas, you have 5 sort of brave Republicans who are willing to speak out right now, and kind of putting their fundraising on the line and things like that. So
yes, it's about money.
I do know McConnell's office is nervous about it, and I do think that that McConnell, if he does start getting some more names against him, I feel like he's going to have to drop out himself. I don't think he'll politically allow Republicans to force him out. I think he'll find a way to kind of get out on his own. So we'll see how it plays out, but right. I think it is really interesting and something to keep a watch on.
Okay, just so people know, again, all this report is up on dailycaller.com, and as always, every so often, I should also disclose I am an editor at the Daily Caller, which gives me the benefit of an entire newsroom at my disposal to include Henry Rodgers, so I'm grateful for that, Henry. Now, quoted in this piece are a number of Republican senators. Senator Ted Cruz is in here. We've also got J.D. Vance of Ohio. Mike Lee is quoted. We've also got Rick Scott and Ron. Is Ron Johnson in this as well?
Yes, sir. Ron Johnson. As well. And Vince, I have to say, I think the interesting thing talking to these 5 yesterday was the fact that they all said, this is really going to be a win for Democrats. This legislation and McConnell's crafting of it. This is something that Democrats will be campaigning on moving forward. It's making the Republican Senate look bad while Democrats kind of get a win here, and they're trying to push forward this Ukraine funding and Israel funding without any sort of border deal, which is a complete disaster for the American people.
Yeah.
Complete disaster for Senate Republicans, and I don't see this playing out well.
Well, the Senate just slammed that through today, that big spending package on foreign countries without any support for our own country, unfortunately. It's an atrocity what we're witnessing. Hey, also today, in terms of the news events that you're covering, it's not just these senators who want to see McConnell go. You also were present for President Trump's press conference today in the wake of oral arguments at the Supreme Court. Just to give people a summary today, the leftists who are trying to rig the ballots across the country, and in particular in Colorado right now, they had a very poor showing before the court today. Even the most left-wing justices were very skeptical of the idea that it's actually saving democracy when you purge candidates from the ballot. It's just a Looney Tunes argument. How was President Trump today when you saw him? What is his spirit like in the wake of that?
Well, I was sitting outside waiting for him to walk out of Mar-a-Lago, so I wasn't able to listen to a lot of the arguments, but I was, keeping track of a lot of it through social media, and it sounded like the arguments were going pretty well. And I think he walked out at a time where he felt like, the arguments were going on his side. He seemed like he was in good spirits. He didn't seem too concerned overall about the entire thing. And then he started saying, Nancy Pelosi was actually the one who started the insurrection in the Capitol, which was kind of funny. I've never heard him use the word insurrection, I don't think, but he was saying Nancy Pelosi was the reason for that. He then went on to say...
Well, then he did reel that back, though. I think I was listening to some of that audio. He reeled it back kind of almost immediately. He said, by the way, what kind of insurrection doesn't have weapons? The only person who was shot was Ashley Babbitt.
Yes, and I was just about to say that. And then he finally mentioned Ashley Babbitt, and he went on that whole thing. But no, I think Trump and his team seem very confident that this will play out well in court. I heard that the Colorado lawyer today was not doing the best job, and that he might even have some, liberal justices, if you want to call them, kind of take the side of Trump's case here. So
yeah.
a lot to catch up on still, just leaving Mar-a-Lago currently, but I overall, he seemed in good spirits. He's on the way to Nevada right now. He's going to go give a speech there later tonight, and he's still on the campaign trail grinding like it's like nothing, like none of this is going on.
No, that's just amazing. It's been a remarkable day so far, and Henry Rodgers, somehow you found yourself in the middle of all of it. Our own Forrest Gump. Henry Rodgers, thank you very much. Great to talk to you, sir.
Thanks, Vince. Appreciate it always.
Henry Rodgers of the Daily Caller. He really is in the middle of all of it. He's like, everybody's talking to Henry. Everybody wants to talk to Henry, and so do we. So I'm so glad he was on with us today. We do have all of the news today. And as he mentioned, even the lefty justices today were like, wait a second. You're going to banish Trump from the ballot? We don't like Trump, but this seems a little crazy. This is Elena Kagan today.
Drinking warm water before bed.
What? That's somebody else's audio. That's not the audio I wanted. Why did we capture that? Drinking water before bed. That's pretty fun. Is that an advertisement or something? That's probably. All right, we'll find it coming up. I'll make sure to correct the audio. But don't drink warm water before bed. It's a terrible idea. I don't even know what they're about to say. Wow. Yeah, a lot of breaking news today. Joe Biden is too senile to stand trial, says the Justice Department in an official filing. How soon until we see another freak out about Merrick Garland? I can't believe he's not protecting me enough. Some report coming probably in the days ahead in the New York Times or elsewhere that Biden's all mad that Merrick Garland ever even put Robert Hur in charge. Now, meanwhile, there's no charges coming. Nobody's charging Biden with anything. In fact, they say his senility is protecting him, that a jury wouldn't be able to go after him. He's a well-meaning elderly man with a faulty memory. They just wouldn't be able to do it. I didn't know that was a defense. The White House, by the way, does have an addendum to this report. They have their own statement built into this, and they're objecting in strenuous terms to the idea that Biden's memory is failing. They defend him like Kim Jong-un's loyalists. We do not believe that the report's treatment of President Biden's memory is accurate or appropriate, they say. The report uses highly prejudicial language to describe a commonplace occurrence among witnesses, a lack of recall of years-old events. Such comments have no place in a Department of Justice report, particularly one that in the first paragraph announces no criminal charges are warranted and that the evidence does not establish Mr. Biden's guilt. If the evidence does not establish guilt, then discussing the jury impact of President Biden's hypothetical testimony at a trial that will never occur is entirely superfluous. In fact, there is ample evidence from your interview that the president did well in answering your questions about years-old events over the course of 5 hours. This is especially true under the circumstances, which you do not mention in your report, that his interview began the day after October 7th, the attacks in Israel. In the lead up to the interview, the president was conducting calls with heads of state, cabinet members, members of Congress, and meeting repeatedly with his national security team. So this was the excuse they gave us at the time. Oh, he's so busy, he's addressing Israel. And then we find out, actually, no, he was in an endless interview with Robert Hur, who apparently was flabbergasted at how senile the president of the United States is. And now the White House's defense is Joe Biden has a fantastic memory, and you're a jerk for saying he doesn't. That's the White House response. Holy cow. Justin, Wilmington, North Carolina, line 6. Justin, you're on the Vince Coglianese Show.
Hi, Vince. I appreciate your show every day. But it's obvious to everyone that Joe Biden has not been competent to serve trial. He wouldn't be competent. He would be deemed incompetent to stand trial. And he would be deemed incompetent to be president if they gave him a cognitive test. And his administration around him are free to go through with all their anti-American, destructive Trojan horse policies because they know this.
Yeah.
But the people who need to be held accountable are his entire administration that are using him as their patsy for these socialist anti-American policies that are destroying our security, our economy. What else is there?
Yeah, it's the weekend at Bernie's. They're just partying it up and then using his body every so often to try and convince the rest of us that he's the real deal. That's what we're experiencing.
We must all hold them accountable. All of them need to be accountable for the things that Joe Biden could not be accountable for in a court of law.
It's crazy. And so here we are. Thank you, Justin. Here we are. The Biden Justice Department which is currently prosecuting Biden's top political opponent, the leading candidate for president of the United States, also has now declared that the current president, is too senile to be found guilty in a court of law. And so, what? The Biden Justice Department says Joe Biden's senile? How does this work? What comes next? When do we invoke the 25th Amendment? It's amazing what's happening. Again, this is all just the breaking news here in the last hour. Who knows what the next hour holds? The Lieutenant Governor of Georgia is going to join us coming up. We bumped his interview back a little. It was 4, now it's 4:30. He'll be on at 4:30. We'll talk to him about the effort to rig the election down in Georgia. We got a country to save.